friend. How are you doing? I hope you are having an outstanding day. This is Heather, of course. This is the Back to Me podcast yet again. And it's a fabulous Friday podcast because I have super celebrities on Fridays where I get to talk to amazing people and learn something and hopefully share something for you at the same time, a tidbit, anything at all, a new resource for you, anything that helps you be a better version of you, really. And today, my super awesome celebrity is Meg Davis from Meg Davis Healing. Yeah. Hooray, hooray, hooray. Cue cheering. So, no pressure. Meg, hi.
Hi, it's so good to be here. Thanks so much for having me.
Absolutely. I I found your combo of coaching things that you're working on really amazing, and I wanted to be able to share that with everyone. And so maybe we can start with you saying, because I know there's a little history behind it, how you got into where you are and what you're doing now.
Yeah, so I am a certified life and health coach and a Reiki Master and an intuitive. And my how I got into being an intuitive, there's I've heard a lot of people say, "Oh, I always knew that I was getting information, or I knew from a very early age that I was a medium and was able to communicate with spirits." And for me, I always thought that I was just highly observant. It was one of
Right.
those things where people would say, "How did you see that? How did you know that?" And I just kind of was confused because I thought, how did you not see that
Right.
or know that? So having the context of being an intuitive to apply to that made a lot of my past make sense for me. And so I got into being a Reiki master more so to manage myself than anything else. And it was a great way for me to practice doing intuitive readings on people. And the combination of those I found to be so impactful with people. And the guidance that came up was very honest, very helpful, but oftentimes very deep. And so instead of giving people this really profound information that they'd have to go home and process on their own, which there's definitely benefit to that. It just kind of felt like the logical next step was getting the coaching certification so that we can go, okay, now that we have this incredible guidance, let's put together a plan to figure out how we can really start to make big impact in your life.
And that's super brilliant, actually. Like, here's it's I sometimes I feel like when you go to, and I'm just going to use the the doctor as an example, and they say, "Go do this," and then you say, "But how?" Right? So the fact that you can say, "This is what you need to do, and I can help you do it," is just like so beneficial. And I find it interesting that you say, you thought you were just observant because you were in corporate at one point, right?
Yes, yeah, I had many managerial roles through multiple different industries: hospitality, emergency services, finance.
Right.
So I, and I remember being very young as a child and having this moment of clarity and this feeling more so than a thought of, I am going to be great, and I have this potential for greatness. And so I, kind of forgotten about it and found my way back to it periodically throughout my life. And I would take on a new role or get into a new industry, and it would, I'd recall that moment and think, wonder if this is my iteration of greatness. I wonder if this is what that moment meant. And it was always, yes, there's potential for success here, but it wasn't until I found being an intuitive that feeling, that familiar feeling that I had experienced in my youth came back to me, and I realized that it's being an intuitive and a healer that's my path for greatness.
Right. And I brought that up because because I was in corporate as well in finance, and we chatted about that briefly previously. And I, when you when you made the comment that you thought you were just being super observant, I think it's because when you're in those roles in that environment, it's also left brain, so logical. Like, because I've experienced that where people said, "How did you know that?" I'm like, "Well, didn't it was just exactly the same? Didn't you just realize what was happening there?" Like,
Yeah.
it's so obvious. And I actually, until you said that, I was like, "Oh yeah, I always thought that I was just super observant." Right?
Yes,
But it is a
absolutely.
shift when you shift your brain to go, actually, there's more to it than just being super observant. And it doesn't have to be anything weird about it. I think it's normal. I'm sure you feel like it's normal, right?
Absolutely, absolutely, and I really liken intuition to, like, professional sports or a professional musician. We all have the capacity to play an instrument or, throw a basketball up at a hoop, but some people are either naturally gifted or practice hard enough or a combination of the both to be able to get to, a professional degree with their craft, and intuition is the same thing. We all have the capacity for intuition. We've all had that gut feeling of, I just know something to be true, or I just have this feeling that something is going to happen. And then the universe, God, whoever proves us right. And so I've just really run with that feeling and have practiced it and honed it to the point where I can give readings to people. And being more in touch with our intuition is something that I work on with all of my coaching clients as well, because it's really beneficial to everyone to be more in touch with our intuitions, even if we don't intend to give readings to other people
Right.
in the future.
Just make our lives a little easier.
Yeah, absolutely. We have so much, and this is one of the most powerful things I think about coaching in a nutshell is that we have our own answers, we have our own solutions, and being in touch with our intuition can really give us the power and the tools to access that more regularly so that we can start paving our own path for success and being able to create our own al- alliance with our own greatness because we all have that. I recounted my instance with feeling the capacity for greatness, and we all have that, and our intuition is holds the key to a lot of that for everyone.
Right. And my brain went a few places. I have this, my brain pings around a lot. So I'll try to remember all of them.
Intuition.
It's like ping, 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 ping. Um, but something that came to me was the the world we live in now. I think sometimes people they don't discount their ability to necessarily to connect into their own intuition, whatever, however it presents itself. But I feel like sometimes they don't know how to. It's like we've created this move, 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 move space. And I feel like often the intuition, you just need an easy little quiet space to present itself.
Mhm.
And do you find that some of what you're helping people with is the ability to actually just turn down the volume of the world so they can hear themselves, right?
Yes, 100%. That's really regardless of how the person I'm working with is wired, we are such a tangible society. We really value things that we can quantify and feel and and really hold in our hands. So this concept of intuition that and of the unseen and somewhat the inexplicable is challenging for people. So
But we believe in
especially
gravity.
exactly. Gravity, the air you breathe, all of this is to the naked eye invisible. Um, but we we have a hard time with it, and it kind of makes sense because, you know, gravity, breathing, there's somewhat of instruction manuals for those. With
Right.
intuition, it's different for how it comes across to every person, and so it's challenging because there isn't an instruction manual, but being able, like you said, to quiet the noise and then, I find that it's easier to get in touch with intuition when you start with how it feels and where it shows up in your body, because those are the big indicators that we're getting intuitive guidance,
Right.
more so than just knowing when a thought pops into your head that it's intuition versus your brain going into fiction or story mode, or
Yeah.
oftentimes fear.
And it is, that is a good distinction because, people are really good at dreaming up the worst case scenarios for everything and convincing themselves that, well, this is, my premonition that this is going to happen. And it was recently I did one of my little short podcasts, which is only 10 minutes long. That's like your expectation of what's going to happen can often color the outcome. So if you're expecting something bad to happen, it's almost like you subconsciously create it. But that's not the same as having an intuition of something bad happening, right? And it is those fine little threads of too bad we don't have an instruction manual.
Yeah, wouldn't that be great?
That would be amazing.
Yeah, and I think there is definitely an element, I mean, with law of attraction that's really gaining in popularity and people following that, and I think that's really great. So with that law of attraction concept, to an extent, yes, the things that we put energy and thought into are somewhat the things that we create. Um, but I think it really comes back to, and that's the biggest distinction. That's always where I start with people is how you feel intuition in your body, where you feel it in your body, and how those feelings differ from fear. Because I find that fear is the biggest other feeling that people confuse their intuition with.
Right. And I don't know that intuition usually, in my experience, hasn't presented itself as a fear, like your intuition isn't usually going boo, like trying to scare you, right? That's the best way I could think of to describe it. Like I feel like your intuition isn't trying to frighten you. So I feel like fear is almost like the you can almost maybe not entirely say, okay, that's probably not my intuition. That's probably some story, old story, something going around in the background that's coloring what I'm imagining.
Often, yes. I have, however, worked with some people in the past that do get premonitions of
Okay.
really heavy life events, community changing events, and that is really scary for them.
Right.
Um, so being able to help them make more sense of that and not let it stop with fear, even if the intuitive guidance that we're getting is something that is a little bit unsettling, it's being able to take that to the next step and really utilize the guidance that we're being given in an impactful and meaningful way. It's kind of turning on the thought process of things are happening for me instead of things are happening to me, um, but from a, you know, somewhat sometimes traumatic experience level.
Right. And I guess sometimes when it's your intuition is giving you something that seems fearful, is it knowing that there it's giving it to you for some reason, for your well-being, right? So sometimes fear just comes from feeling like that uncertainty. So maybe the fear reaction is that initial reaction, and then, okay, this is actually good information. What can I do with this information? right?
Exactly.
Which I
Yeah.
think is what you were saying, move past that, the initial reaction, which happens. We can't like that initial emotional thing always comes, and then what do you do with it after you have that? Which direction do you choose consciously to move,
Exactly.
right?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. It's always reminding ourselves that there's a thank you or gratitude in everything, even if it's something that we wouldn't wish on anybody else and we wouldn't want to experience again. There's always something to be benefited and or learned from in that experience. So it's empowering people to be able to look past some of the traumatic or unsettling things that we experience into and shift that into a learning moment that helps us become who we are.
And it's also interesting. Um, this just came to me that sometimes, because I've had this happen to me, something that seemed like the worst thing in the world. But when I got to the other side of it, I'm like, actually, that was the best thing in the world that happened.
Yeah.
So it's like perspective is everything, of course. So when you get down to the other side of it, you're like, oh, I know that I was really upset about that happening at the time, but can I just take back my yelling at you, universe, and say thank you?
Exactly, yeah, and that's kind of how I found, and we mentioned before that I just thought I was really observant, and that's kind of how I found my intuition was I, was working on building this life that I thought that I wanted and this relationship that I had, and both the career I was working for and the relationship I was in, everything just felt like it was crumbling around me all at once. And I feel like that was so necessary for me because if I didn't have those things fall away from me that in a manner that felt very much beyond my control, I would never have put my life back together in the way that I have. I couldn't have even imagined it. If I was I always tell people if I was holding the pen drawing every detail about my life, I would never imagine to have drawn it this way. And this fits so much better than anything that I could have imagined.
And I think part of that is we can't as big as our imaginations are, we can't imagine how amazing it could be, right? We can't imagine if it's not within our realm of experience, how can we imagine what it would be like to be completely different than we've experienced? I always remember, did you ever see the film What the Bleep Do We Know?
Oh, yes.
Where they're talking about, the ships coming and the natives couldn't see them because they had no context for what ships looked like. So they just couldn't see them. Whether it's true or not, I don't care. I think it's a pretty cool analogy. And it helps you and it helps me understand that I can have a dream. Like I always tell my clients, my coaching clients, to have a goal and have a plan, but leave room for who knows, like divine intervention to,
Mhm.
to create something that you never would have expected. Because, like you, I never would have predicted in a million years that this is where I would end up. And it's funny that we're so paralleled because I had a big house and I had a big career and I had a relationship and they all gone in one fell swoop. And the reinvention of yourself is incredibly empowering and liberating and scary as hell,
Yes.
right?
All of those things, yes.
Because you don't know what's going to happen. You don't know where you're going. You're like, I don't know. I get over here, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah, and it was during that time in my life, when everything was falling apart, somebody was like, "Oh, you should go get a Reiki treatment," and I was like, "What now?
Yeah.
What is that?" So I did, and it happened to be someone who gave me a very short reading, intuitive reading at the end of my Reiki session, and she said, "You are an empath, and you are more intuitive than you know," and I just broke down in tears, and telling someone that they're an intuitive is not the most common remark to make,
No.
Um, and just my own intuition took over and I responded, I know. And then I realized what I had just said. I know. You know, telling someone they're an intuitive is kind of different, and them responding with I know is even more different. So it really made me stop and think. So
Right.
that was when I found my mentor, got my Reiki attunements, only ever intended to work on myself and manage my own life, my own emotions better. The context of being a highly sensitive person and an empath made a lot of how I experience the world make a lot more sense. So I only intended to work on myself, and I got to a point where I really felt like I really think I can work on other people and benefit them. So that's kind of it's my all of the modalities that I operate in have really taken form from there, in the sense that it's always it's always started out for me, and it's developed into something that I really think other people would benefit from this. So
Right.
there's such especially for empaths and highly sensitive people, there's such limited understanding, and we're growing in our acceptance of that, um, as a culture, as a society. But there's such limited understanding and even less support for people like that. So that's why one of my specialties in coaching is empaths and highly sensitive people, because if I can help somebody who experienced what I went through and help them be able to improve their relationships and be able to make sense of the world and offer points of connection instead of feeling like they're totally alone and nobody gets them.
Right.
That's that's one of my missions.
Yeah. And part of um, this is, I'm again, my brain is pinging. I'm thinking about, one of the determinants of health is having a network of people who get you, having that social connection. And it can be quite isolating if you feel like the odd man out all the time, right? The
Yeah,
the strange person over in the corner. But I think a lot of intuitives are very good at hiding themselves,
yeah,
fitting in with whatever's going on. But that also impacts their own health
mhm,
and mental well-being. And I was thinking about our last couple of years of how isolating even that has been. So I
yeah,
know some people have thrived because they thrive in having that space, the quiet
mhm.
time. Some people have been, oh my gosh, having such a hard time. But do you find it harder to work on? I am assuming you've been working online for as most of us have. Do you find it harder to connect with people when you're online, or I know that was many thoughts all at once. That's the way my brain works.
No, I love it. So I have been fortunate enough to be able to see people in person for the last at least 6 months or so. That said, a lot of the way that I connect with people is still online. And I think, especially with Zoom or any other kind of video conferencing capabilities, just being able to see someone's face and read their body language seems to be enough of a personal connection, because especially with coaching, you really want to be able to read the body language someone's giving off. So that's been really helpful. And then with Reiki, I see a lot of my Reiki clients in person, but I can still give remote readings. And then for intuitive readings, I do a lot of that remotely as well. And I don't personally find I have any kind of difficulty picking up on their energy. I guess in that capacity, I have really good energetic antenna.
Right. I mean, time and space is just a construct, right? So,
Exactly.
and I
Exactly.
mean, I don't have my, what is the top level of Reiki called again?
Reiki
Your
Master?
yes, master.
Mhm.
I don't have the master level, but I did all of the up to the master levels of Reiki. But interestingly, I did it because I for my massage clients because I've been a massage therapist for 14 years now. And I did it as a way to help them, um, I guess, recover more quickly or
Mhm.
be able to sense more what they needed to help them. Um, but I was like you, like I I didn't take the master because I thought, well, I'm never going to teach it, so I'll just skip the master level. But the distance Reiki was always interesting to me. How you could actually, like, if you have that quiet space and that mindset where you can actually find them in the ethers, for lack of a better word, find that energy. And today, I don't know, you keep making me think of what the bleep. Maybe it's time for me to watch it again. How they're talking about they did that test with the electrons where you know, did something to one here and then the other one is, somewhere far, far away and it reacts at exactly the same time as if they were still connected.
Mhm.
So the, what they came out from that was everything is still connected. So I get maybe that's why you can actually make it's not that hard to connect over space or over distance.
Yeah, yeah, to be honest, I'm still working on my understanding of exactly how it all works, and I'm not sure I'll ever get to a definitive answer, but I like to spend more time being able to connect in whatever capacity and however that works than trying to necessarily figure out how it works. I just trust that it will, and it's just amazing. I always tell people that I get as much out of working with people as they do because I was a bit of a skeptic before I started doing this. And if I didn't have these experiences where I knew things about people that there's no way I could have known, I don't know that I would believe it.
Right.
But I can't make this stuff up, especially with so I'm also a medical intuitive and I really believe that there is this sweet spot convergence between alternative therapies and Western medicine. So I like to use my gifts in that regard as a way to kind of indicate to someone that I'm sensing that there's maybe this issue going on. And when was the last time you had a doctor check that out? I never want to be diagnostic with anything like that.
Right.
But I really like to work in conjunction with Western medicine.
And I guess because I don't think medical intuitive is something that's super common that people necessarily know a lot about. So can you explain a little bit what medical intuitive is in the way you work with it?
Yeah, so I can actually see things that are going on with the body, see things that are the most common one I see, especially with my Reiki clients in person, is I do what's called a body scan, and I just kind of ask certain parts of the body to light up for me if they need attention. And almost always it's people's hips and or neck that are out of alignment. And from all the sitting and everything that we do, it's
All the zooming.
yes, yeah. But then also things like I know one person I worked on, it felt like there was just an energy blockage in their lower extremities. So I brought that up to them. They took that back to their doctor who said, okay, well, let's check it out. And um, there was a wound on their foot that wasn't healing. So the doctor went in and took a look at some of the veins and said that, yeah, there actually is some blockage. So they went in, cleared up the blockage, and the foot wound healed within a couple weeks.
Fabulous.
Yeah,
Right?
so different things like that. And again, I feel so blessed and honored to be part of people's journeys with this and to be able to help facilitate healing. Um, it's just it's an honor for me that people choose to work with me.
Right. And I like that you made a comment that you don't have to understand it, and that even the medical intuitive part, like, you don't need to be able to say, "Oh, by the way, you have this blah blah blah." It's just like there's something here, because I remember when I was doing my Reiki, it was kind of that same thing. Like, there's something here. Now, the woman that I was working on, I didn't know was breastfeeding, and that's what I was sensing. Right? It's like there's something going on with your chest. Oh, I'm breastfeeding. Oh, okay then. Right? But
Yeah,
um, the when you were talking about not having to understand it, the we do have a tendency to always want to know the, step one, step two, step three, why. But I believe that we can't actually, like, going back to, we can't imagine something that big. I don't think we can get our minds right now, the way we're using them, to expand to be able to even fathom it if they did tell us how it worked, they being whoever they are.
yeah,
If we were given the information, I feel like our brains might explode. But knowing, like, when I get into my car and turn on the key, I know kind of how it works, but I couldn't actually tell you how the thing works. And I don't need to, because I can put the key in, turn it on, and I can go as long as I have gas,
yes,
right?
yes. And you trust that it's going to take you to the grocery store to get essentials. Exactly.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think of all kinds of things like that. Like, we have so many things in our lives that the computer is a perfect example. We turn it on and we just say, okay, there's a very good chance that it's going to connect me to the rest of the world. And I have no idea how it works, even less than how a car works. And when it's not working, it's like, I don't know what to do. So I just turn it off and turn it back on again. Maybe for ourselves, when things aren't working, we need to rest, turn
Yeah,
ourselves off.
exactly. And that kind of goes back to something that you had brought up earlier with people, especially empaths, highly sensitive people, even neurodiverse people. During the pandemic, they were gifted this time to be able to um, have more of that separation. But it was challenging for people that would really benefit from it to often be able to use it to their advantage, because many people that I work with that are empaths, highly sensitive, neurodiverse people usually know the how they experience the world and have more of a concept of a term or a box that they somewhat fit in diagnostically. Um, but a lot of people don't have a concept of their differentness. And when you have people that are really sensitive to their environment, they just think this constant state of overwhelm is how you do it. That's how you live life. And they don't realize that there can be a better way. And a lot of that has to do with clearing out energy that doesn't belong to them and being able to reunite with who they really are. I see a lot of people that are empaths, highly sensitive, even neurodiverse, that get really angry and get really defensive often, and their communication, their relationships suffer. And I take a look at them energetically, and it's like, well, no wonder there's no room for yourself in your own body, in your own life, because you're so, whether you mean to or not, you're so full of everybody else's everything. It could be a challenging relationship at home, or it could be, and I think everybody's experienced this one at one point. You walk into a grocery store or a room full of people and somebody is upset about something, and then you end up taking that with you. And then you kind of realize that, wait a minute, I wasn't upset about whoever did something. That was this other person. And I had taken that with me and I hadn't even realized the weight that I'd been carrying around because of it. So, because so many people are so used to this constant state of overwhelm, we're being gifted this opportunity of being able to dial back some of the overwhelm that we have in our environments all the time, that in and of itself, not being able to be stuck in this constant state of discomfort is very discomforting.
Right.
So it's teaching people how to, again, with the why did this happen for me instead of why did this happen to me, being able to use it to their advantage and get a better understanding of who they are and how they connect with the world, how they experience the world, so that they can take these things that they always thought made them different or that nobody would understand. And instead of saying, oh, I'm sorry that I'm really quiet over here, and I'm sure you have lots of judgments about me because of it. It's I'm really quiet over in the corner because I'm really nervous. And offering the feeling of being nervous as a point of connection, because everybody can relate to being nervous at one point. It allows the other person to say, oh, I totally get it. I get nervous, except when I get nervous, it shows up in this other way.
Right. And it is true that when we were suddenly given this, not everybody will view it, but this gift of this time to ourselves, if that overwhelm and that, and you, if you haven't been able to ever know which part of you is you, and then it's gone, I could see, like, I can see a lot of people wouldn't really know how to navigate that. They might think that they're going crazy when really they're just coming, they're just normalizing for what they should be on an ongoing basis. And then, because I see some people are rushing back out to groups of people and socializing, at least where I am here, there's
Mm.
large gatherings. I wish for them that they, before they throw themselves back into that deep end and wanting that almost like a drug, the overwhelm, the adrenaline, even though it's so detrimental to their health. I mean, not everything we get addicted to is good for us, obviously.
Yeah,
Right? It's like
yeah, exactly.
helping them. I guess part of it is helping them understand um, what do what is their healthy state. Like if they've never experienced it before, their most healthy state might not feel like that to them initially, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And even beyond the healthy state, it's to further simplify it, I always start people off with getting reacquainted with who they really are, because we are so full of other people's stuff
Oh
that
yeah.
when we get thrust into this opportunity to spend time with ourselves and maybe a couple of people that are closest to us, we have become completely estranged from who we really are. So, of course, it feels incredibly uncomfortable to be in a room with a stranger, even if that stranger is you.
Right?
I work with so many people that when I ask, what do you even like to do anymore? Even before the pandemic, what do you even
Yeah.
like to do? I don't know. They can tell you what people around them like to do, but they can't tell you what they like to do.
Right?
So just reacquainting yourself with what you like to do and the things that make you feel fulfilled and how you think about certain things in the world is a huge step to being able to know yourself and then have that awareness so that you can start to discern the different feelings and experiences that this belongs to me or maybe this belongs to somebody else. And it's something that I've outgrown and it's not serving me anymore. So, and all of that, to your point, is very much on the way to optimal health.
Right. I remember I talked quite some time ago to a woman who does um, Akashic readings. And she made that comment of like recognizing which energies were hanging around that weren't hers. And she had this little mantra that she would do at the end of each session where she was like, "Thank you for being here. Go home." Like in a nutshell, that's what she was saying. Like, "You're
Yeah.
not mine. Go home." So I guess a practice, something practical for people who are like, "How do I know if it's mine?" You know, part of it is knowing does that actually make me happy? You
Yeah.
know, the question that you ask people, and if it doesn't, you don't have to know whose it is or where it came from. It could have just been someone you walked by. Thank you
Yeah.
very much. Go home.
And
So-
and even if it didn't come from outside you, maybe it's something that belonged to a version of you from the past,
Mhm.
but maybe that's not serving you anymore. Maybe those were things I often work on people, or I often work with people on things that a lot of subconscious rewiring where we put certain actions or understandings in place to keep us safe,
Oh,
and they
100%.
have very much done so, but then they become to keep us limited. So it's really looking at things going, even if this came from me, this isn't serving me anymore. I don't want to look at at this a relationship with this person that's very close to me that I want to improve. I don't want to look at it this way anymore. That kept me very safe all these years, and I can thank that. I can look at that with compassion and gratitude, but I can also choose to have a different relationship with that now.
Right. And we do hardwire a lot of those early memories and things that kept us safe at some very different stage of our lives that we never it's like we never update our software.
Exactly.
We're operating on really old software, but
Mm.
we're in the 21st century, everybody. Update your software. But sometimes you need a technician to help you, I think,
Yeah,
right? That's what I see
yeah,
coaching is your
absolutely.
technician to help you update your software.
Yeah, and actually, that's one of the reasons that, with my coaching practice, so I do coaching with people, kind of a more standard model where you meet twice a month or once a week for about an hour or so, and that's really impactful. But I also have recently rolled out intensives
Oh,
with
yeah, we were
clients.
talking about that.
Yeah, where I actually go and be with them in person several hours a day, several days a week, and help them shift their relationship with their existing environment. So this can be really helpful for people that are newly divorced, or maybe empty nesters, or maybe even newly married, or people that are faced with getting a medical procedure done. And part of their recovery and ongoing lifestyle shifts are a new relationship with diet, exercise, however they need to support themselves differently for ongoing health. The classic example that comes to mind first is, gastric bypass surgery. So how beneficial would it be to have somebody with you to help you change your habit and mindset in the moment, so that you really get that intensive support for several months. And then we start to taper off to a more once a week, once every couple weeks kind of coaching relationship. For people that I've introduced this concept to, they say, "Oh, that kind of sounds like how in recovery you have a sponsor." And I hadn't modeled it after that at all, but it kind of does sound a little bit like sponsorship, but there's so many things in life where there aren't sponsors for that.
Right? You
So,
are on your own trying to sustain a change or sustains some new way of being. But I'm interested, like, how is that for you as a practitioner to spend that kind of intense, because you have to hold that space, and that is an energetic. I'm not going to use the word drain because it's not right. If you're channeling the energy and not using your own personal energy, but that takes a degree of concentration on your part.
Yeah, so being an empath and a highly sensitive person myself, um, genuine connection with people is something that really drives me. It's really fulfilling for me. So there's a lot of protection mechanisms for highly sensitive people that involve having armor and reflecting a lot of what we experience back. And that's never really felt right for me. So especially with my Reiki attunements and being intuitive, it became really, really important for me to be able to clear other people's energy from me regularly so that it doesn't become a main burden. So it is a lot to spend time in somebody else's space, especially when they are needing assistance to transition to a way of life that serves them better. But I got really good at making sure that I don't take those people home with me and
Mhm.
that I build up enough of a defense, but also a really good cleansing mechanism so that I can hold space for people and really be present with them and also be able to have energy and capacity to do other things in my life that are important to me personally.
Right? Yeah. The danger of all entrepreneurs is their vocation becomes all consuming and they forget that what especially coaches, while teaching people to have their own life, don't forget to have your own life, right?
Yes, and I always tell people that I it's so beneficial that I found coaching and that I've been able to build a thriving practice with it because so often the things that I'm talking to people about are things that I need to hear and things I need to be reminded about. So I feel so blessed to be able to help empower other people while I also give myself very regular, very good reminders of things
My
that
my friend
really
Blake,
benefit me too.
yeah, my friend Blake, who's a coach, always says, "We teach what we need to know."
I 100% agree with that. And I also get for Reiki and intuitive readings, I also get people who end up dealing with things that are similar to what I'm going through at that moment in life. So energetically, it's just really interesting how we call those people to us.
Right? Absolutely. Um, it happens so often, even as in my practice as a massage therapist, I would get, gr groups of the same things would come always at the same time, and I would kind of give myself a pause and think, "What was that all about?" You know? Maybe I don't know the answer until further down the road, but it's always interesting to see how these groups come together. I was this just came to me, and you might not have an answer for it, so don't worry about it. But for people who are listening who think, "Oh, I might be an intuitive. Maybe I have too much of other people's energy." What simple kind of cleansing practice would you give people if they were just like starting? Something is that something you can share? I don't know. I'm putting you on the spot, I know.
Yeah, no, I so I'm kind of hearing two different questions there. The
Ah,
first is if they're an intuitive, and I would, for everybody, say yes, you are an intuitive.
right.
You do have the capacity to access your intuition. And then the second question is how do I get rid of things that aren't serving me, whether they're other people's energy or whether I'm feeling too full of my own stuff. That the example I always use is when we delete things from our computer, but they don't actually go away. They just sit in the delete bin until we purge the delete bin. Like maybe there's some of that going on
Yes,
where it's
yeah.
just you're full of all of your own stuff that you've processed or processed enough. that you just need to let go of. So there's a lot of different techniques. Grounding is an amazing one. I'm a big advocate of people being outside barefoot as much as they can. Um, it's just it's so beneficial to be able to give things back.
And nobody does that anymore.
I know. And I always know, even in Northern California, in the somewhat temperate climate that I live in, and in the wintertime when it doesn't make sense to wear, flip-flops, I definitely notice an energetic shift when I have my feet in shoes all of the time,
Right.
or at least in socks, or not able to connect with the earth or the ground below me. I know a lot of people that live in apartment buildings go, well, I can't connect with the earth. I'm on the third floor. But even the ground, whatever the ground that you're able to put your foot on, earth is best, but the ground itself is good enough. It's better than nothing.
Right.
So if it's, January in the snow and all you've got is the heated floor on your third floor apartment, do that. Put your bare feet on that,
Right.
and really be able to envision your body with every exhale, letting things go, giving things back to the earth, giving things back to, if you know that it came from somebody else, just kind of offering that with compassion as a gift back to them. We don't want to throw anything back to them.
No.
Hey, it's ours. It's so much more healing for us to just kind of energetically nudge it back towards where they can kind of take it back for themselves and just say it doesn't belong to me anymore. And so
Right.
whether you know where you want to send it, who you want to send it to, really getting a good visual of giving things back or giving things to the earth that don't belong to you, aren't serving you, is fantastic. And just because everybody is so different, there's so many different ways to accomplish that, that if anyone is listening and really wants assistance in finding a way that works best for them and resonates with their unique mindset about how to do that, please reach out. I am happy to help you. I'm happy
Right.
to come up with something that works best for you.
Yeah. And there are so many ways to do it. And I remember once, because I've been teaching yoga for 18, oh my gosh, years. And so I tend not to wear shoes. I usually forget to put them on. But there is a difference between about putting them onto the ground. And I don't know if this is something that came to me one day or if this was something I heard someone else say. It's lost in time somewhere. But it was like, well, if I'm giving it to the earth, aren't I polluting it? But really, not really, because the earth just takes everything in and recycles it and sends
Yeah,
it back out, right?
yeah,
So that's the Mother Earth is there to take that and turn it into something beautiful, like even the worst garbage that can turn into compost and grow beautiful flowers. So,
yeah. And
um,
that's exactly right. And I always, like, for people that are maybe newer to this or don't have, or aren't really into the whole, like, woo-woo energy aspect of it, um, I like to try to use modern scientific aspect and understanding of energy to convey the point that, all of the matter in the universe that exists, there will never be any more, there will never be any less. And so, to your point, exactly, when we give that energy back to the earth, we're not polluting it, we're giving it back so that it can be turned into something else. you
right.
know like your compost metaphor. That's a great example.
Yeah,
It's not, those things don't go away, but when we put them in the right environment to be turned into something else, they can be turned into something that is very beneficial for continuing health and life.
amazing. So good. As I said right before we started, time flies when I'm having conversations with
It
really
sure
interesting
does.
people. Like, how'd that happen? We entered the time warp. No. So definitely, I'm going to encourage people to reach out to you. Your information is in all of the announcement posts, and I'll make sure it's in the show notes and then the chats and everywhere, so that they can connect with you. Because I think it's important if when they were listening to this, they went, "Hold on, that's me." Definitely connect, because your life could just be blossoming open from this, right?
Yeah.
Um, do you have any final words of wisdom? Another putting you on the spot.
Um, it kind of just reiterating what you just said. If anything about this sounded like it piqued your interest, or I was describing you or someone you know, please reach out. And whether we work together or I can put you in touch with someone that could benefit you more than I can, I love
Definitely.
to be that spot where people can turn to for guidance, whether it's from me or from somebody else. So
Awesome. Yeah, that's why I do the podcast. It's like, here's some help. Here's some help. Does this help you? Does this help you? So I love that. That's amazing. Thank you so much for joining me. Thank you for taking time during your day. Thank you for sharing all of your wisdom. I think it's outstanding.
Well, thank you so much for having me, and thank you for starting this podcast with your own wisdom, because it's been able to. I mean, I've loved the presenters that you've had on, the celebrities that you've had on.
Now
So
you're one of the celebrities.
I have made it.
You've made it. See, you were meant for greatness. That's so awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank
I'm
you.
sure we'll talk again soon.
Yes, and I look forward to it.
Okay, my friends, you guys have a fabulous week, and we will catch you again soon.